Hi, I'm attorney John Cannon with Cannon & Associates, your fierce advocates. In today's video, I'm going to speak to you of the implications of taxes in a divorce action in Oklahoma. As you may be aware, both federal and state taxes come into play during the course of a divorce case. In this video, I want to speak to you about some of the most common concerns and considerations you should keep in mind while facing divorce in Oklahoma. One of the first important considerations is the division of assets and property. During the divorce process, you and your spouse will likely divide different assets that you have in your marriage, be it real property, such as your family home, investment accounts, stocks, bonds, retirement accounts, and other cash items or investment accounts. It's important to keep in mind that the IRS identifies these assets differently, and some of them are and some of them are not taxed by the IRS. It's important to keep in mind that investment accounts are subject to capital gains taxes. And when you or your spouse separate, you may incur taxes that relates to the increase in value of these accounts from the date that the account was initially opened. Conversely, real property such as a marital home has limited taxes that are applied to it. Therefore, if you were to receive the marital home in the divorce, that may end up being a much more valuable asset than an equally cash valued investment account due to the tax implications. Another important consideration in divorce is that in 2018, taxes no longer gave you the benefit of providing alimony or child support. Prior to 2018, if you were to provide alimony or child support to the other party, those could be considered deductions or something that reduces your income that's taxed. This is no longer the case under our tax code, and therefore, if possible, you should seek to increase the property given to your other spouse in a different area to reduce your liability that comes directly out of income through child support and spousal support. Another very important issue that comes up with taxes and divorce is the issue of retirement and investment accounts. When you and your spouse divide out your retirement accounts, it's best to use something called a Qualified Domestic Relations Order, or QDRO. This is a tool that allows you and the other party to divide interest in retirement accounts that have not yet been realized. The benefit to that is that you can insulate and guarantee your interest, but not suffer the tax consequences until a much later date, if ever, when those retirement accounts become completed. Another important consideration is the 401k, which is commonly held by many people in Oklahoma and across the country. If you sell a portion of your 401k investment account in order to buy your spouse out of an interest, you can greatly incur tax consequences from this, because the funds that you take out from the 401k can be taxed at a very high level by the IRS. Another important consideration with taxes and divorce is how you file your taxes during the divorce process. The two most common options are 1, to file married jointly, and 2, to file married separately or basically as an individual. You can have many tax benefits to filing married jointly, as the IRS rewards people that are a single family home. You can maximize your deductions, however, you are jointly responsible for what you and your spouse allege in that tax return. Therefore, if you're considering this option and have concerns about the truthfulness of your spouse and their profits, debts, income, then you should certainly have your family law attorney and a CPA review this with you. Conversely, if you file married separately or as an individual, then you are only responsible for what you allege in your individual tax return. However, you don't receive the benefit of the maximum deductions that you and your spouse can have when you filed married jointly. The last thing I'd like to talk to you about is the issue of dependents and your tax returns. Oftentimes when parties enter into a divorce decree and a child custody plan, they will lay out how the dependents or the party's minor children are to be considered for purposes of each year's tax return. We see 3 common options of this. 1, the parties divide their minor children as equally as possible and will claim them until their children become adults. This allows for the maximum separation of the parties and less interaction on how the tax return will be filed. The second option we see is that one party will claim all of the party's minor children on even numbered years, and the other party will claim all of the minor children on odd numbered years. This gives you the maximum benefit of your children and dependents on your year, however, no benefit of your dependents or children on the opposite year. The third and potentially most valuable way to go about handling your dependents is to file the dependents with only one party every single year. How this works is, through the assistance of your attorney and a CPA potentially, you determine who will receive the maximum benefit to tax returns based on the deduction of you and your spouse's minor children. By identifying this party and making it so that they receive the deduction every single year, you can subsequently divide the benefits in the tax return from that individual. So if the husband in the marriage would receive the maximum benefit from the deduction of all of the party's minor children, if he claims them every single year, and then say within 90 days, the parties share that information, and the other spouse or the ex-wife receives half the benefit of that deduction, then it can maximize the benefit you receive financially from your dependents with the IRS. Divorces and taxes in Oklahoma. It doesn't get much more complicated than that. We hope this video has helped you identify some of the concerns and issues that may play a role in your divorce as it applies to tax considerations, but we know this hasn't answered all of your questions. If you have causes for concern or questions about tax and its implication in your divorce, or questions about a divorce in general, we welcome you to reach out to us any day of the week. Here at Cannon Associates, we're dedicated to being your fierce advocate, and we look forward to hearing from you and answering your questions.